welcome back. In this video, I am going to be going over how to pass your real estate exam. Now, this is not going to be state specific. This is going to be general information. If you've reached this point in your journey where you're ready to pass your exam, then I would say chances are you probably know what your requirements are for your state. After you have completed your educational requirements and you're ready to take your exam, the first tip that I would say is, well, what I did, and that's what I'll say. Everything is from my point of view. So what I did was I reviewed my state specific information for a week. A solid week. I found an audiobook that had all of the state specific information for Ohio, and it was someone that was just like reading the information, and so I would listen to it in my car as I was driving to and from where I needed to go. I just absorbed all of that information. When I took my courses to get my license, they were more on a national level. It wasn't very state specific, and what they did have that was state specific, it was not really focused. It was very brief information. So that's the first thing that I would say. And as I got near, and I have notes, that's why I'm looking down, but as I got to the end of my courses, I would review, not the end of my courses, but for a week after I reviewed that, I would hit math. I struggle very much so with math, and so I had to, throughout this whole entire study session, or whatever you want to call it, I had to hit math hard because I wanted to make sure that I didn't miss anything. I wanted to make sure I was calculating, interest rates correctly, amortization tables, all of that stuff. I wanted to make sure that I really had that down, because you just never know what's actually going to be on the exam. So the next thing I did was I scheduled my exam for like a week out. So let me go back a little bit. So for 1 week, I reviewed the state specific information. For another week, actually, I think I did it more than a week, I reviewed the national information, and then I would do the math for a week. So I would do each of those for a week. So the way it came out was that it was about a month that I gave myself to study before I actually took my exam. Now, I know that they tell you not to wait and all of that because you'll lose the information, but I know myself, and I knew that when I was taking my courses, because I had so much other stuff going on, I didn't 100% absorb everything that I learned in my courses. So I needed to hit that review material really, really hard, because I knew that the review material was very much focused on what was going to be on the exam. So I gave myself about a month, and so when I scheduled my test, I timed it to where it was like a month from when I was done with my courses. So and like I said, that is actually what worked best for me. Another tip that I will give you is repetition. Another thing to remember is that what you actually are learning, and I won't say all of the things because I learned this from Prep Agent, not to say that you don't use any of the information that you learn, because you do. There is just there's a percentage of things that you actually will be using when it comes to actually being a real estate agent versus what you need to know for the test. There is an abundance of things that you need to know for the test because you don't know what's on it, that just study it. Just repeat everything you feel like you need to know. Whatever is on the review course or the crash course that they tell you need to focus on, I would make sure you focus on that, and then also incorporating things that you might have been kind of confused about. I know for me, when it came to the financing part, because it had to do with the math, I had to really hit that really hard, because I knew I did not do very well with math, and so I wanted to make sure that on top of everything else that I had that math down. And also making sure that you're not just memorizing the information, because again, there is a percentage of things that you will need to know when you're actually a real estate agent. There have actually been times, I'm in my second year in real estate, and there have been times where I've had to pull my books out. I've had to Google things just because I didn't remember from when I took my courses what the answers were. So once you actually register for your test, and you'll actually hear this, well, I heard it when I was doing my prep agent coursework, that once you schedule your test date, do not change it. Now, obviously, if there's an emergency that comes up, you may need to change it, but don't change it, because when you schedule that, you're 100% ready when you schedule that. Or should I say, you should make sure that you are 100% ready before you go in and pay the fees to actually sit for your test. The last thing that I will add, and this is something that I did to help me out mentally, was in my area here in Ohio, there were a couple of locations that I could have chose from. I chose the second location because it was a little bit further away. Now, it wasn't like 30 minutes or anything. It was like 25 minutes or something like that on the freeway. The reason why I did that is because it gave me a chance to like review some things. Now, during my drive to my testing location, what I did was, there were a couple of things that I wanted to make sure that I had fresh in my mind. So when I started my car up and I was leaving, I went over that stuff. But for the majority of my drive, I listened to some music, listened to some affirmations, listened to some positive things, so that way I could be relaxed and calm. Now, one thing that Joe, and that's who, for prep agent, that's his name, one thing that he hit on was that you don't know what you don't know. So, 10 minutes before you're about to walk in trying to cram in some information, it's not going to help you. If you didn't already know the information, you're not going to know it just by shoving it into your brain, because what'll end up happening, that's just like if you have a suitcase that is already packed to the max and you try to shove something in there, something's not going to fit, the zipper's going to break, bust open. So don't overload your brain. Just whatever you already know, just go with that, because you'll be surprised at what you actually do know. And I know with me, like, my short-term memory is not as good as my long-term memory. So if there were some things that I had already went over a couple of weeks ago, most likely I'm going to be able to recall those things better than I would something that I tried to teach myself 10 minutes before I was walking into the testing location. And so relaxing myself, clearing my mind, feeding myself all the positive energy was definitely, I feel like, what helped me succeed. So just to recap on what I discussed in this video on how to pass your real estate exam, make sure you invest in some type of review course or crash course. Make sure you give yourself enough time to review. Now, like I said, I gave myself a month. You don't necessarily have to give yourself a month. Give yourself whatever amount of time that you need, so that way you can make sure that you are solid and that you know the information for sure. Once you schedule that exam date, unless there is an emergency, and I mean an emergency, family emergency, something's going on with your kids, whatever, and you absolutely have to miss that test date, that is the only reason to reschedule. Make sure that you are repeating these things however many times you need to repeat it. Repeat the things to yourself. Make flashcards. Write the things out. Whatever you need to do. Also, make sure that you are relaxed and your mind is clear before you walk into that testing center. I hope that this video helps someone. If you have any other questions, make sure you put them down below. I would be more than happy to answer those questions. If you don't already follow me on my social media, that is down below. I am on Instagram and I am on Facebook. Please follow me there. I'm actually also on LinkedIn. I'm going to add that link down below as well. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Take care.